Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, incompetence in complete and total full display in the North Carolina General Assembly as Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden did not prove that he was fit to lead the office. We'll have all the audio, all the videos, and all the details coming up. And a good Tuesday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning is brought to you by Melissa Gott and the amazing team over at the Law Group in Wilmington. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. There was a very interesting, and I mean very interesting, hearing that took place in the North Carolina General Assembly on Monday. You had leaders from Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, which, for those not familiar with state's geography, Mecklenburg County hosts the city of Charlotte, which is our largest city. So you had state or city and county officials in front of the General Assembly's House Select Committee on Oversight and Reform. Now, that committee is the one that just back a couple of months ago had individuals in from the Chapel Hill Carrboro City School District and was railing on those officials for having inappropriate content, inappropriate books, inappropriate literature, and inappropriate practices within that public school system in what many would argue in defiance of current state law. So this committee, and it's baked right into the name, the House Select Committee on Oversight and Reform, invited these individuals, including Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden, to come testify about what is a major and growing problem across the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, which is crime, which is violence, which is public safety. This all goes back to the horrific and brutal murder of Irina Zarutska back in late August of 2025. She was minding her own business, going home from work, 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee trying to escape her war-torn homeland to look for better opportunities, to look for security and safety in the United States, for her to have her neck sliced open on the Charlotte light rail by a 13-time convicted criminal who was out on the streets due to the soft on crime policies that you see play out in places like Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And that's what our focus is today. But of course, it's not just Charlotte and Mecklenburg. You see the same kind of stuff in Raleigh and Durham and Asheville, in San Francisco and Los Angeles, in Washington, D.C., in New York City, Chicago, Minneapolis. I mean, it is the textbook play for these far left progressives that get into power. And so the hearing in Raleigh on Monday was very lengthy. In total, it ran over 6 hours. That did include about a 45-minute break for lunch, but a 6-hour committee hearing, and the vast majority of that focused on the Mecklenburg County Sheriff in Garry McFadden, who has had a very contentious back and forth with lawmakers over the last couple of years. We'll get into some of that as we go through. So let's take it right from the top. These are the opening comments from Representative Brendan Jones. He, the Republican from Columbus County. He is also the majority leader in the North Carolina House. And as if you watched that hearing we covered about 2 months ago with those school officials from the Chapel Hill Carrboro City School District, you know that Representative Jones does not shy away from saying what's on his mind, and frankly, what's on the mind of a lot of other people as well. Here's the Republican from Columbus County.
Each of you called here today for one reason: incompetence. Incompetence in the law, incompetence in running jails, incompetence of handling crime, and most notably, incompetence in keeping the citizens of Mecklenburg County safe. That is, to be frank, completely unacceptable. I'm not going to beat around the bush. This hearing is not going to be butterflies and roses. This body is going to get to the bottom of this crisis today, no matter whose feathers get ruffled or what letters get sent. Normally, your activity or thereof, lack of, is something we could chalk up as mismanagement, incompetence. In August, Irina lost her life, brutally murdered on Charlotte's light rail. This young woman had fled war-torn Ukraine to come to America for a better life. But she didn't get that experience. She didn't get to have her dream. Her life was cut short, not by one individual, but by a system that allowed career criminals to roam your streets who had 14 arrests. A system that allowed its officials to go on reality TV shows rather than patrolling the streets. A system that put pride festivals, all while continuing to go off the fiscal cliff after a deficit after raising property taxes on its citizens. A system that prioritized DEI initiatives over armed security guards on cats. Her blood is on your hands. I'm going to close this. The core function of government is not DEI, trans rights, the welfare benefits for illegal aliens, or some new social justice program. The core function is public order, safety, security. And it's the act of doing everything in your power to ensure your citizens wake up every day to feel safe. You have failed in doing that. Today, you're going to explain that to us.
It's unfortunate that it has to be said in that way, but it does. Government oftentimes, and this tends to be a larger issue when you've got Democrat majorities and Democrat control, is not focused on the things that they should be. Like the most basic thing government can provide, which is some level of safety and security. As the majority leader just laid out, it's all of this other ancillary crap and garbage that is the priority. Pride Festival this, DEI that, all of these other phenomenal little festivals and all of these other resolutions and proclamations, all of this other garbage that government spends so much time dealing with when the core function of providing basic sound services completely falls by the wayside. And as Representative Jones notes, while all of this is happening for the unfortunate citizens of the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, your property taxes are going through the roof. So your taxes are going up, your cost of living is going down, and the quality of service that you're getting is abysmal. It's a recipe for disaster. We have seen this playbook over and over and over again. And so right off the top, the Mecklenburg County Sheriff, Garry McFadden, who has consistently been at odds with lawmakers over his unwillingness to follow state law, his unwillingness to hold criminals accountable for the things that they do, was pressed right off the bat. And of course, he shied away, deflected, and ducked, which was the takeaway from this 6-hour committee meeting in Raleigh.
A formal petition was filed against you alleging, amongst many things, poor jail conditions, a terrible work culture, riddled with retaliation, racial slurs, and bias, the misuse of public resources, and the severe allegation of extortion. I'd like to ask you a series of questions, and if your department is run properly, these should be really easy to go through. First question I'd like to ask, did you ever order, approve, or have knowledge of on-duty deputies transporting individuals to bars and strip clubs, yes or no?
Before he answers that question, this is in reference to a petition that was filed by five members of the public in Mecklenburg County. One of them, who you'll hear, is a Democrat representative from Mecklenburg County, Representative Carla Cunningham, who alleged that there was some sheriff's association meeting or some meeting of sheriffs taking place in Charlotte, and the sheriff, according to sworn testimony, used the resources of the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department to drive his out-of-town guests, his out-of-town visitors, to bars and strip clubs in patrol cars, taking police off the streets to chauffeur people around to, bars and strip clubs. Normal thing you expect to see, right?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me here today, and I'm honored to be here and would love to answer questions coming from this body. But I cannot answer certain questions to this petition. We all know that this petition was filed by a member of this committee, Representative Cunningham, and others who once worked for my agency. Because of that petition being dismissed, and also because of that petition is now under the investigation of the State Bureau of Investigation ordered by the District Attorney's Office, I must respect the process and I must respect the order by District Attorney Spencer Merriweather, but I also have to respect the process of the State Bureau of Investigation to give a fair process, and I do respect that process. So I cannot answer any questions that pertain to that petition at this time.
I will jump in here and say that this is the cover that McFadden used through the entire committee hearing. I've got some of the evidence to back that up. I've got the receipts for you here this morning. Anything that he was being asked. Sheriff McFadden, what day of the week is it? I can't discuss that, as I've already told you. There's an ongoing SBI investigation. There's an ongoing petition, so I cannot answer that question. Sheriff McFadden, what color is the jacket that you're wearing? Unfortunately, while I appreciate being here and I appreciate your question, I cannot answer that. As you are well aware, there's an ongoing. This became his cover for the entire hearing, which very quickly got out of control, and McFadden proved that he is truly incompetent, truly an incapable leader for the state's largest sheriff's department based on population. The city of Charlotte, which is inside of Mecklenburg County, is the largest city in the country. In the state. He is the sheriff for the entire county, and he, from my vantage point, and I think many others, is completely and totally incompetent.
Fair enough. Then let's, hypothetically, does pulling on-duty deputies off the street to chauffeur individuals to bars and strip clubs, would that make Mecklenburg safer?
Again,
It's a hypothetical. It's not asking you directly anything with your agents. Hypothetically, as sheriff.
again, that is in the content of the petition that I just stated that I cannot answer question to, even hypothetically.
I'll let the record reflect the gentleman refuses to answer.
Let me state this, please. I did not refuse to answer your questions. I'm simply stating that this has become a legal matter, a litigation matter, a State Bureau of Investigation matter.
Investigation. There we go. Finally got it. Third time's the charm.
And I must respect the process. Having been a homicide detective for 22 years and respecting the process, this could have been done before this happened. I would have been glad to come and answer questions and talk about what goes on in Mecklenburg County before the petition was filed.
Now I'm going to pause this for a second, and I'm sorry. There's going to be a lot of pausing going on here. I've got a lot of thoughts and opinions I want to get out here. He seemingly is blaming the General Assembly. This is what he's doing. This guy has a track record of having nothing be his fault, a track record of being incapable of accepting responsibility for anything he does. And he seemingly is putting the burden on the North Carolina General Assembly for him not being able to answer questions. If you had invited me before this petition was filed, the petition was not filed by the North Carolina General Assembly. It was not filed by Representative Brendan Jones from Columbus County. It was filed by 5 people in Mecklenburg County, 2 of which were Sheriff McFadden's former chief deputies, which are the number 2 men in charge within the sheriff's department. And yet now it's the General Assembly's fault that McFadden can't answer these questions. He's completely deflecting any of the blame on this and somehow putting it at the feet of lawmakers, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's their fault. Had they invited him sooner, then this could have been done. Not sure how that is relevant at all.
The petition was filed, it was dismissed, and as I said, the State Bureau of Investigation, I'm giving them the respect and honor that they duly should have. So let me make it clear for the record. I am not refusing to answer questions. I'm just simply telling you I am wanting to allow this process to be fair to the state of North Carolina, even to your committee chair, Ms. Cunningham, but also fair to the State Bureau of Investigation and also the district attorney. So again, let me be clear and blunt. I am not refusing to answer the questions.
But you are unwilling to answer whether or not pulling deputies from the streets to drive guests to bars and strip clubs make Mecklenburg safer.
Hat tip there to Representative Brendan Jones. So he goes on this 3-minute diatribe about now all of the sudden the Mecklenburg County Sheriff, who continually ignores state law, continually is a huge pain in the ass for lawmakers in Raleigh, is constantly claiming he doesn't have to follow this law. He doesn't believe this law is right or accurate. Now, all of a sudden, he's the man of process, ladies and gentlemen. Now, all of a sudden, he is the man of, I've got to let the process play out. I can't say this. I can't do that. I can't comment on this. I can't tell you what day of the week it is. I can't tell you what color the sky is. All of this because there's an ongoing SBI investigation. The man that follows no process, the man that consistently ignores state law, is now very, very worried about the process. I would call that being a complete and total hypocrite. The reason that McFadden and other Charlotte officials were hauled in front of this House committee on Monday is the brutal murder of Irina Zarutska. We've talked about this. You're well aware of the situation. It is a story that unfortunately painted North Carolina in a very poor light. It made international news. The Queen City made headlines all across the globe with the horrific screenshots and videos of Irina Zarutska literally being murdered in front of our very own eyes. Horrific tragedy. With that, state lawmakers passed some new legislation back late last year. It was called Irina's Law, aptly named after her, unfortunately. That piece of legislation is a wide-ranging criminal justice reform package that strengthens pretrial release requirements for violent offenders, somebody of which DeCarlos Brown Jr. may have fit the bill of, ending cashless bail, and creating new procedures for ordering mental health evaluations within the criminal justice system. It also holds magistrates and other judicial officials accountable if they allow dangerous, violent criminals back out onto the streets. This legislation was passed bipartisanly in the North Carolina House, signed in Senate, signed into law by Democrat Governor Josh Stein, and surprise, surprise, Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden recently said during a primary debate that he does not support Irina's Law. So Brendan Jones asked him, do you support this legislation? And you're going to be shocked. He couldn't give an answer.
So Irina's Law was a mistake.
Again, sir, you are taking it out of the context of listening to a debate when I was actually speaking to a gentleman seeking to be the next sheriff of Mecklenburg County, who was my chief deputy, who I believe, honestly and seriously, were undermining me while he was at the sheriff's office. So let's be clear. Taking it out of context, did it do anything for me and my staff at the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office? No.
Well, he's not here today. It's a great time to go on record. Do you think the bill's a mistake, yes or no?
Again.
Just a yes or no.
Again, my statement is I would love for you and others to open the door for me also to have that conversation and have my input before a bill is addressed.
So no?
Again, that is my statement.
So now the entire General Assembly needs to halt anything that it's doing as it relates to legislation that deals with law enforcement or criminals or anything. And they need to bow at the feet of Garry McFadden. They need to make sure that he is in the room when every single discussion is happening. That's what he just said. You need to open your doors. McFadden, for Sheriff McFadden, it's a two-way street. Lawmakers aren't going to beg you to come in and speak to them. If you've got concerns with legislation, you're a freaking elected official. Call your lawmakers. Call Carla Cunningham and say, I want to talk about this. But no, McFadden did do that. And again, it's not his fault. It's Brendan Jones' fault. It's Destin Hall's fault. It's the Republican majority's fault that McFadden wasn't invited to the room. One of the things ongoing, and this is a larger discussion about government, and there was a lot of this in Raleigh on Monday, was, of course, there's always a financial burden. There's always a financial issue. So one of the things that came out through testimony, Representative Mike Sheetzel brought this up in great comments, was how policies within the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department, not laws, but policies, the way in which the office operates, could potentially put them at risk of not getting grant funding from both federal and state governments that could help alleviate some of that financial pressure. So the question was one that was pretty simple. Would you be willing to change policies within your office to maximize and get access to as much funding as possible? Seems like it's a pretty simple question. It's not really a got you. Would you change your policies to alleviate some of this financial stress and concern. Here's Representative Sheetzel.
I also reviewed many grants that have been made available recently, both federal and state, but which we are not eligible for based on the MCSO policies that do not maintain compliance for certification related to, quote, interrogation of certain aliens, close quote, or, quote, notice of scheduled release, close quote. If you knew that your policies were preventing you from accessing potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant funding for your office, would you have changed those policies?
We follow the law, and we follow the policy.
Sheriff, let me interrupt you again, because I'm afraid you're not answering the question that I am asking, which is, set aside the requirements of the law. Would you change the policies if you knew your policies were blocking you from receiving grant funding?
If my policies did not follow the law, I would change that policy, but my policies have followed the law.
So your response, Sheriff, is that you will do only what you are legally required to do, but do no more to try to improve the office. Is that your response to my question?
We've always tried to improve the office. We've always tried to prove the communication. We always try to prove the understanding, as we see that is a misunderstanding today.
So, Sheriff, your evasiveness on the question here suggests that maybe you are not willing to do everything you need to do to improve the office. Your unwillingness to answer my question beyond what the law requires suggests that maybe you are not willing to do everything that needs to be done in order to improve your office.
It's a fair point. And it's one that needs to be brought up, because every time you listen to one of these jokers on the left that are in elected positions, elected officials, they're always running around with their hand out looking for more money. They're always complaining, we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough this, we don't have enough that. So Representative Sheetzel says, hey, there's some email communication here internally. That's what he was reading at the start of that clip, that shows that you and your office were aware that certain internal policies that you had made you ineligible to receive additional funds. Would you be willing to change that? I follow the law. Okay, then in fact, the answer is no. You're willing to put your ridiculously stupid policies ahead of the ability to receive potentially large sums of money from the federal government and other entities. That, I would argue, is a major problem, especially as you always hear the cries and the concerns about how there's not enough money, nobody has any money, the government is starving all of these law enforcement agencies and starving everyone else. I would assume, in a position of leadership like this, that you would try and get every single dollar that you possibly could. This is a very large sheriff's department. The sheriff's office is over the largest city in the state of North Carolina. And so any opportunity to get even a dollar from an entity or an organization, I would assume that you would do everything in your power within the law to go after that. Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden is not willing to do that. The reason he has been at odds with lawmakers for such a period of time is because he refuses to follow state law and has consistently been a thorn in the side of lawmakers as it relates to working with the federal government on ICE detainers. So Representative Brendan Jones brought some statistics which should be very concerning for anyone across the Charlotte Metro.
Sheriff Rowe is able to do his job correctly. He has a 65% ICE pickup rate while you have a 16%. Explain why yours is so much lower than Sheriff Rowe's right here with almost the exact same number of detainers issued.
I can't speak for Sheriff Rowe and his policies or what he's doing. Many sheriffs in North Carolina do it differently. I do it by the law.
Do you remember who authored the original ICE bill in this General Assembly?
No, I do not.
That would be me and now Speaker Hall.
Thank you.
We had conversations back then. We had 97 sheriffs doing their job. We had 3 that didn't. We've swung this around to where we've got 99 doing it and 1 not. I don't see anyone else here today.
And that was an interesting point from Representative Jones, because as you listened, and I'm not encouraging you to listen to the entire thing, it's a very lengthy here. I'm trying to bring you the most important, most relevant clips from it. There was this constant woe is me attitude from McFadden. Of course, he tried playing the race card a couple of times. The only reason I'm here is because I'm the first black sheriff in Mecklenburg County. I'm only here because I look different than everybody else. At one point, he referred to himself as I am the elephant in the room. this constant woe is me victim mentality. And as Representative Jones just laid out, there's 99 sheriffs that don't have this problem. There's, by the way, in case you're not familiar with North Carolina geography, there are only 100 counties in the state. So 99 of the 100 counties, all the sheriffs are duly elected, follow and work with Immigration Customs Enforcement, work with the federal government on these ICE detainers. One does not. That individual had his ass hauled in front of this House committee yesterday because of his refusal to work within the boundaries and in the guidelines laid out in state law. And surprise, surprise, he's the victim in all of this. Surprise, surprise, it's not his fault. He didn't do anything wrong. And this goes into this constant, nothing is his fault, everything is just being unfairly done upon him, where he truly is just, he's the man of the people. He's trying to do everything in his power to help the people of Mecklenburg County, to help people within the city of Charlotte. And it's just, frankly, not true. It's farcical. And so this constant not my fault mentality played out. And after lawmakers over and over again kept saying, oh, so it's not your fault, so it's not your fault, he kind of exploded.
And I hope that you respect me wearing the badge, including the stars on my shoulders, that I have rightfully earned for 44 years.
Let me stop and say this. I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. That doesn't mean that I'm not critical of law enforcement when it screws up, but I've got the utmost respect for law enforcement. Garry McFadden looks like a complete tool in front of this committee hearing. He's wearing this gaudy green jacket with all of these stars on the shoulders, this huge sheriff's badge. He looks like a complete jackass in front of this committee meeting. And then, oh, now you need to respect me, and you're not respecting me, and why are you being mean to me, and why are you saying this about me? This guy he had a piss poor performance in front of the General Assembly on Monday.
I understand, no matter how we paint the picture here today, I clearly understand why I'm here. Being the only sheriff has ever been brought before a hearing such as this. Even leaving here today, I want to come to your office, your office, your office, your office, and anybody else's office. I would hope that we exchange phone numbers today so I won't have to go directly to anybody. I want a better relationship to work with this body. We need a better relationship working with this body. Simply making it seem like I am the fault and using what you've heard on the radio, not my fault. We all clearly know that comes from one radio station that said it's not my fault.
And I'd like to give a shout out to the legendary Pete Callender from WBT Radio in Charlotte. That Pete has been saying that and calling Garry McFadden not my fault McFadden for quite a significant amount of time. And so for him to get a shout out during this committee meeting was absolutely perfect. If you don't listen to Pete's podcast or his radio show, I highly encourage you to do so. He's on noon to 3 weekdays on WBT. His podcast, The Pete Callender Show, is available in all of your favorite podcast apps. And so, again, why does Pete and now other members in the North Carolina General Assembly, why do they keep going back to, it's not my fault? Because they watched a 3-hour committee hearing, and this joker refused to accept responsibility for literally anything. Nothing. And so he's truly living up to the name that nothing is, in fact, his fault.
You have never heard me say it is not my fault. You say it's always not my fault. You make it characterize it's never my fault.
Yes.
A mother who comes to me and said her child has died, she takes that fault and I take that fault from her. So let's make it clear. What we are saying here today, it is like an invite and welcome Sheriff McFadden to your chambers, to your offices. I will find out if that's true. I will find out if you're that welcoming and that open.
So again, he's the victim. So lawmakers have already said, hey, if you want to come up here and tell us how to do our jobs and tell us how to write law, come on, do it. We have an open door. And he says, well, I'll see if that's actually true or not. Why is that necessary? Lawmakers have said, hey, if you want to be, and I've got a clip of that coming up a little bit later on, if you want to be part of this process, as you're claiming you want to, our doors are open. You can come here as the state's arguably most important sheriff in terms of geographic responsibility and provide insight. But he already has to cast doubt on that because he's the victim in all of this. Irina Zarutska is not the victim. The fact that she was brutally murdered on the Charlotte light rail, in large part due to the policies that people like Garry McFadden push. It's poor Garry McFadden, 44-year law enforcement professional, sucking down more than 6 figures from the taxpayers in Mecklenburg County as the sheriff since 2018. He's the victim in all of this. We should all be crying this morning for how mean the General Assembly was to Garry McFadden, how unfair they were to him. Poor guy, 44 freaking years as a law enforcement officer. He's been the sheriff since 2018. Have you heard any sufficient answers out of his mouth? It's a loaded question. The answer is no. And I'll continue to back that up. I have a whole lot more from the Mecklenburg County Sheriff. We'll get to those details and some more of those clips coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Before that, I want to thank the law group here in Wilmington, Melissa Gott and her team, for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. It gives me the ability to spend as much time as I did yesterday pulling all of these clips, getting all of this compiled. It's not possible without the law group and Melissa Gott and her team. And I want to remind you that when legal challenges arise, put your trust in the law group. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across the eastern half of North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense. If so, the law group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, ladies and gentlemen. They're located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. Give them a call for any legal challenges you might be facing, 910-251-6088, or visit them online, lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate the Law Group and their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. All right, we'll grab a quick break here. On the other side, I've got a whole bunch more from Garry, not my fault, McFadden, his continued deflection from lawmakers, Representative Charlie Miller here in portions of southeastern North Carolina, jumping in on the fray as well. We'll get to all of that as the Nick Craig Show rolls on a Tuesday morning, streaming live on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Thanks for spending some time with us today as we continue our coverage of what only can be described as a very contentious, a very fiery committee hearing in Raleigh on Monday, as leaders from Charlotte and Mecklenburg County were hauled in front of the House Select Committee on Oversight and Reform, talking about, well, I would argue, pretty important issues: crime, public safety, and violence, which unfortunately has gained Charlotte international attention in the span of less than a year. The Irina Zarutska murder back in late August, some other controversies and issues within the city as well. Later in 2025, Operation Charlotte's Web, as Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials conducted a wide-sweeping immigration roundup within the Queen City. And so, while Garry McFadden, who is the Mecklenburg County Sheriff, wants to cry, woe is me, and play the victim in all of this, there are very serious problems ongoing within Mecklenburg County. For example, there have been 21 people that have died in Mecklenburg County detention centers, also known as jails, since 2018, when McFadden became the sheriff. That is more than the previous two sheriffs combined. And so 21 people is a lot. These are individuals that are in custody by the government, right? When you're arrested, whether it's pre-trial or post-trial, your health and your safety is now the responsibility of the government, is the responsibility of taxpayers across the state of North Carolina and in Mecklenburg County. So a fair question asked by Representative Reese Pirtle, the Republican from Rockingham County: hey, you've had 21 people die under your watch in detention centers within Mecklenburg County. What do you have to say about that? His answer is absolutely insane.
People die every day across America. People die in hospitals across America where there are millions of dollars of technology, millions of dollars spent on salaries and education to equip the best doctors sometimes in the world at a facility.
So let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. 21 people dying under your watch as sheriff. You're the top law enforcement dog in the county. Buck stops with you all the way at the top with your pretty green jacket and all your buttons and stars. And your answer to 21 people dying under your watch is, people die every day. That's a hell of a tack to take. That is one way to boil this thing down to nothingness. So do we just lay that out with everything? Some poor kid gets shot by a stray bullet in Charlotte, which unfortunately happens pretty regularly. And I guess the response now is, people die every day. They even die at hospitals. Can you believe it? People just die. So it doesn't really matter that 21 people died under his watch, because it happens every day, even at prestigious medical institutions across the country. I hope you're now understanding why this case is being built, that nothing is ever Garry McFadden's fault.
And people still die.
Sure.
Saying a hospital and a jail are comparable?
No, sir. No, what I'm saying is they are responsible for the care of that person. People die in the United States every day of prostate cancer, heart attack, congestive heart failure, and several diseases.
By the way, it's congestive heart failure. Just, since McFadden seemingly doesn't understand what half the words that are coming out of his mouth. So, yeah, people die of prostate cancer and strokes and all these things every day. So people just die all the time. So therefore, it's okay that 21 people have died under his watch in Mecklenburg County. What an insane, absolutely insane response to what is a fair question. Again, you're the top dog. People are dying under your watch. That is a fair question from lawmakers. That's a fair question from anybody across the state of North Carolina. But people just die every day. That's the excuse from Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden.
Sheriff, we're talking about a jail,
let me
controlled
finish.
environment where people are there for pretrial or post-trial adjudication and sentenced to the jail. I'm asking you, what have you done? Let me ask another question. You can't talk about it. Let me ask another question. What have you done to mitigate policy to ensure that the continued deaths in the jail doesn't occur? I know the state requires a certain amount of wellness checks. What have you done beyond the required state minimum to ensure that these deaths do not continue?
Again, I would ask that this committee respectfully understand that I'm not going to answer any questions or go into any part of questioning as it pertains to this petition.
So, as I mentioned, the petition is the excuse for everything. How are you making sure that people aren't dying under your watch in Mecklenburg County? I can't answer that question because there's an SBI investigation. A complete and total deflection, complete and total incompetence on display from Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden. The next question, Representative Charlie Miller. He represents portions of southeastern North Carolina, Brunswick, and New Hanover County. He also spent his career within the Brunswick County Sheriff's Department, rising to the rank of deputy sheriff, which is the number 2 man in the office. And as you just heard from Representative Purtle, there was this discussion over wellness checks and welfare checks on inmates. Representative Miller, who has a lot of experience dealing with this, honed in on the issue. And I know you're going to be shocked by this, ladies and gentlemen. Garry McFadden did not have a sufficient answer.
But Sheriff, state inspection reports found that in 4 of 5 deaths in 22, that you had officers that either falsified or failed to conduct required safety rounds. Were you aware of that finding?
Yes.
And what actions did you take, if you can?
Again, I'm going to refer you also to my previous statement. We are still getting into litigation, lawsuits, and an investigation. Prior to this, we could have asked us any questions, and I would have been invited. If I was invited, we could talk about it. But simply trying to find another way to maneuver for me to talk about this petition is not going to be acceptable to me, because we have one person here, Representative Cunningham, is part of that petition. And as you can see, everything hangs on the words of Sheriff McFadden, whether it's in the media, whether it's on social media, or anywhere else. So I have to understand that doing this investigation and also the litigation proceedings, that I will be asked, as I'm being asked today, of what I said during a debate or a hearing or anything else. I respectfully ask for that.
Okay, let's try it another way. What is the state requirement for inmate checks per hour?
Juvenile or adult?
Both.
We're getting to the same thing. I'm going to say it again.
No, sir. No, sir, we're not.
Okay.
State jail inspectors come. They download your I forget the name of the system that you do the checks with. How often are you required by state code to check on an inmate?
It goes back in a leading question. That's a leading question into another question, if you want to be honest.
Just answer the question, sir.
I'm answering the question again. I'm answering the question again. Respectfully understanding the petition and the lawsuit, I'm going to respect the process and not ask any questions pertaining to that.
It was not a question pertaining to that. The question was a very simple one. The state requires checks on inmates, but there's a variety of different factors, juvenile, adult, whether they are somebody that may be on suicide watch or might have a health issue. The state requires that. This has nothing to do with this petition, which, by the way, has been dismissed. So there's no active litigation going on. The lawsuit that was brought against him, the petition to remove him from office, has been dismissed by a judge. It is not pending. It's not waiting anything. It has been dismissed. Yet he can't answer what the state law requires because of a petition that has been dismissed. Now, the answer is he doesn't know the answer. He should. He's the sheriff. He doesn't know the answer. So he continually hides behind, well, I can't answer that question. I'm not allowed to answer that question. So they took a quick recess after this. And then amazingly, Garry McFadden, after running to the bathroom, seemingly knew what the answer was. 4 times an hour for individuals that have health issues and twice an hour for individuals that don't. 15 or 30-minute intervals. So it was amazing to me that he had none of the answers. Couldn't possibly answer this question. But then all of a sudden was able to do so. Was just amazingly, after presumably looking it up on his phone or asking somebody who was with him, hey, how often do we have to do this? He was able to answer the question. Pretty interesting from my vantage point. Pretty interesting. One of the issues, and obviously we're beating up pretty heavily on Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden, and justifiably based on his incompetent display in front of the North Carolina General Assembly on Monday. There is a larger issue across the nation as it relates to law enforcement, and that in large part is recruitment. Over the last 5 or 6 years, you have seen many movements, including the defund the police movement on the left, pushed by radical progressive Democrats, that have forced many individuals to either A, not go into the practice in the field of law enforcement because they don't want to be demonized by a bunch of left-wing loons, or 2, it has caused a lot of early retirements with individuals getting out of law enforcement and going to other sectors, whether that's private security or something else, or just breaking from law enforcement completely. This has been an issue that is caused by those on the progressive left that have been talking about defunding the police, saying that police officers are pigs, wrap them in bacon. I mean, all the fun stuff that we were chanting during the summer of 2020 when we were saying, ACAB and all of this other fun stuff that you heard in cities all across the United States. So the General Assembly asked McFadden, what are you dealing with and how are you dealing with recruitment issues within your office right now? Fair question, I would argue, for any law enforcement agency across the country.
If you look across the country, when I just left Washington, D.C., we all are subject to lower recruitment because of what's happening in these large cities with ICE and immigration and all. It sends a negative sign. So we are doing recruiting, but we need the help of the public also to encourage them to take on a unbelievable career in law enforcement.
So what, you went there, I didn't. So what does ICE have to do with recruiting?
It's negativity on law enforcement.
Why is it negative?
It's negative. People are talking about coming to, ICE is part of law enforcement. So the negative confrontation that has been created in our cities and counties across the nation, with ours in Charlotte's Web, it gives a bad taste of law enforcement. Simply the badge, it gives a bad indication. So we're asking people to let's get back to talking good about law enforcement as a reputable profession, but we don't.
Well, but again, I have to stop this. Who is the ones that are out in the streets talking negatively about law enforcement? It's Democrats, of which Garry McFadden is. He is a registered Democrat, currently serving as a Democrat, running for re-election as a Democrat. Take a look in the freaking mirror, Garry. It's your party that has been calling police all of these horrific, awful names over the last 6 years. He's talking about, the public needs to come together. Speak to your own people. These are your guys. These are your voters that are marching in the streets. Just a couple of months ago, were marching against ICE, conducting operations. It's not conservatives. It's not Republicans. It's Democrats, liberals, and progressives that have continued to demean the men and women of law enforcement. There is nobody else to point the finger at than the Democrat Party.
We don't.
Representative Miller, hold on. Chair's got to interject. So you're saying this law enforcement is going out doing their job, detaining illegals, bad criminals, is a bad look for law enforcement?
Killing people is bad look for law enforcement with someone without a gun.
21's died in York jail since you've been.
No, you asked about you asked about ICE, or you asked about law enforcement.
I didn't ask, I made a statement.
Well, I'm making a statement also. So here's what we're going to say. 2 American citizens died, not immigrants. American citizens died.
Not North Carolina.
But still, it's an image. It's an image that we have of law enforcement.
But using Garry McFadden's logic, he's talking about the 2 ICE-involved shootings in Minnesota. Under his logic, people die every day. So I would say, who the hell cares if people died in Minnesota? I'm just using his own logic, right? He was asked about 21 people dying under his watch in the Mecklenburg County detention system. And his response was, people die all the time. They die in hospitals. They have pancreatic cancer. They have heart attacks. They die of strokes. So why does he care about these 2 people being killed in Minnesota? Happens all the time. What's the big deal? Let's be perfectly clear about this. Law enforcement has been dealing with recruitment issues significantly over the last couple of years due to the anti-law enforcement rhetoric pushed by the left, people that Garry McFadden are associated with. And he now wants to blame ICE and 2 ICE-involved shootings that have happened in the span of less than 2 months. So prior to, I guess, January the 1st of 2026, there were no issues with recruitment. There were no issues with getting good talent in at local law enforcement. It all started when Renee Good decided she was going to drive her car into an ICE agent. That's when law enforcement started seeing a dip in recruitment. You talk about a disgusting deflection. It doesn't get any worse than that. It's not the fact that the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office has created an incredibly toxic work environment. It's not that the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office and Garry McFadden has continued to disrespect his employees, has continued to demean and talk down to them. That's not the reason why that sheriff's office and many others are facing recruitment issues. And just so that you can understand a little bit more of what exactly has been going on, Representative Brendan Jones highlighted some of these major issues, what people have said, including 2 former number 2s within the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department. So you have the elected sheriff, Garry McFadden, who we're hearing from. There are 2 other individuals that were right below him that had this to say about McFadden. And maybe this has something to do with the recruitment issues that the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department is dealing with. Take a listen.
One of your chief deputies said your department was, in quote, the most toxic and abusive he has worked at in all his years of law enforcement. And he, in quote, has never seen an agency head conduct himself in such a classless and abusive manner. The next chief deputy right after him described his tenure with you as, in quote, the worst year of his entire career. Both used the word dictatorship to describe your office, with one even go as far to say equivalent to a third world dictatorship. Both have accused you of retaliation and abuse. Both have said you've used your office for personal benefit. A third senior official, Dr. Rigsby, said, everything Kevin Canty put in his letter is absolutely correct. He runs that organization like a dictator. Sheriff, I ask you, when 3 independent senior officials all describe the same toxic, abusive environment, are you telling us today that they're lying, or is there a problem?
That is part of the petition. That is a part of the litigation. What I will say is, did you talk to anybody in the community besides that? No. Did you talk to any of the staff that works there now under my leadership? No. We're talking...
You don't know who I've talked to.
Okay.
You have no idea.
Okay.
You're making an assumption, correct?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. An honest question finally got answered. Thank you.
But I think that you also are making an assumption.
No, we're just going by written testimony.
Written testimony, but is any of that written testimony? Not a question. Why don't we talk to the staff? But we have that investigation going on.
Well, with all due respect to Sheriff McFadden, the 2 of the people that filed this sworn testimony were your staff. They worked directly under you in the sheriff's department. They were the number 2 guys. When you look at the hierarchical food chain of the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department, it's Garry McFadden at the top, and then 2 of the individuals that filed these petitions calling him a dictator right below him, creating a toxic work environment. Claiming that it was his worst professional career, the worst year in his professional career when he was working under Sheriff Garry McFadden, who has already had to publicly apologize for using racial slurs within the sheriff's department, referring to other members in the sheriff's department, including his chief deputies, using racial slurs to do so. He had to publicly apologize for that after the recordings were leaked. He was talking behind their backs and using racial slurs. But the recruitment issues in Mecklenburg County are not because of that. It's because there was an ICE-involved shooting in Minnesota in January of this year. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the horrifically toxic work environment that Garry McFadden has created. I want to end on this. Elections have consequences. For voters in Mecklenburg County, for voters in the city of Charlotte, if you are fed up with this stuff, it's time to get out and actually do something about it. Posting on social media ain't going to do it. Garry McFadden is a complete and total incompetent leader, and he needs to be shown the door by the voters in Mecklenburg County. He proved, at least from my vantage point, he proved that he is not suitable to lead, again, the state's largest sheriff's department. His answers to none of the questions made a lick of sense. I mean, there was hardly any logic, and everything was his fault. This was him complaining, bitching and complaining that lawmakers didn't invite him to Raleigh to talk about legislation before they passed it.
Are you familiar with what section or article of the Constitution that forms the office of the sheriff?
Yes.
Which article is that?
I don't know the article, but I know that I am a...
It's Article 7.
Okay, please let me finish.
I just asked you if you knew which article, and you said you didn't know specifically which article, so I'm telling you it's Article 7. We are the Article 2 branch in the state government. Our job is to write the laws, and we do so in consult, not for one county, although we do pass local bills. This discussion hasn't been about local bills. This has been about public bills that generally apply to all 100 counties. And we consult with a representative for the sheriffs. We consult with the different representatives around the state. I have 119 colleagues here in this chamber that assist us in writing the law. So, I appreciate the bluster with which you've come in here and the hubris, but the fact remains you are not a part of this chain of command. It is not your job, and if you have concerns about laws that are coming before this body or bills that are coming before this body, you have an elected representative that you can go directly to. It is not the leadership's job to go and consult the opinion of 100 sheriffs around the county or around the state. So, with all due respect, I would like to keep in mind our different constitutional roles here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So I guess that the open door policy is not for the sheriffs.
This guy's insane. I mean, like we're at the brink of like somebody that's a complete and total sociopath at this point. This whole point that you heard there from Representative Mike Sheetzel was, if you want to be involved in this process, pick up the damn phone or come up to Raleigh. We're not going around the state of North Carolina seeking every single person's thoughts and feedback on every single thing that we do. This guy is pretending like he's some poor old country boy living in the middle of nowhere that nobody wants to hear from. He is the largest, most important sheriff in the state of North Carolina. And woe is him. Nobody called me. Nobody told me that you were doing this. It was in the news for months. If you were so freaking concerned about it, call Carla Cunningham. He had no problem calling her and threatening her, which is part of that petition that he's not allowed to talk about. He had no problem calling her and saying, I hope something bad doesn't happen to you because you voted for legislation that I disagree with. So his phone works. He's obviously got a car. Sure, he drove a state-issued vehicle up to Raleigh yesterday. So he had no problem traveling to Raleigh. But and then again ends with, so I guess it's not an open door policy because Garry McFadden is the victim. Everybody is doing wrong by him. The violent crime rate rising in the city of Charlotte, the horrific tragedies that we've seen unfold in front of our very own eyes, none of those people are the victims. Poor old Garry McFadden is the true victim in all of this. And these damn lawmakers are being too mean to him. He's a duly elected official, and he's sitting up there crying like a baby over, nobody's talking to me. Nobody invited me to come and speak. Your door isn't truly open. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? Talk about the world revolving around you. In Garry McFadden's universe, he is the sun, and everybody's just revolving around him. He is the most important person that exists in the state of North Carolina. And if anybody as much wants to order some pencils or some paper, they should consult with the great sheriff from Mecklenburg County. Let's end on this. A little civics lesson here on the Nick Craig Show. What branch of government does a sheriff fall under? I don't know. Let's go to the tape.
If I were to classify your position as the highest law enforcement officer in the county, would that be a fair description?
That's correct.
Okay. And as such, you made reference earlier that you're a constitutional office. My colleague made reference that there are constitutional divisions amongst responsibilities between us and you. What branch of government do you operate under?
Mecklenburg County.
What branch of government do you operate under, Sheriff?
Constitution of the United States.
Correct. That is what establishes the branches of government. I'm asking which branch you fall under.
Oh, my Lord.
Mecklenburg County. I'm a duly sworn Mecklenburg County Sheriff. We answer to the people of Mecklenburg County.
This was not where I was anticipating getting stuck. Are you aware of how many branches of government there are?
No.
Okay. For the sake of debate, I will move on and say there are 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. Of those 3, which do you believe you fall under?
I believe I fall under the last one.
Would you say it to me?
Judicial.
Okay. You are incorrect, sir. You fall under the executive.
Poor Alan Chesser. Poor Representative Chesser having to go through that exercise in Raleigh. What branch of government do you fall under? Mecklenburg County. Congratulations to all my friends in Mecklenburg. We have now just established a brand new 4th branch of government, and it is now Mecklenburg County. So you've got the executive and the judicial, and I don't know what the 3rd is, but also Mecklenburg County. And also the Constitution. So maybe we have like 5 branches of government now. And I guess maybe a 6th would be the people of Mecklenburg County. So we've just literally doubled the number of branches of government that we have. This is very important information. What branch are you under? Constitution. Mecklenburg County. The voters of Mecklenburg County. Poor Representative Chesser. I didn't think this is where we were going to get stuck. I mean, don't you learn this in like 3rd grade? There's a really popular, is it like a PBS show or something? I'm completely drawing a blank on what it is. But there's a very popular like show and little skit about the 3 different branches of government that kind of walk through all of them. I'm sure it's copywritten, so I can't play it here on YouTube. But like, this is stuff you learn very early on in life. And it's not like, I saw some idiot liberals on Twitter posting about this, and they're like, oh, what a setup. Representative Chesser's question was a total setup. It wasn't a setup at all. There are 3 branches of government in the federal government, in state government. Like there's 3 branches of government. You have the people that like write laws. The case in point, the people at this hearing on Monday in Raleigh, the General Assembly, of which Garry McFadden thinks they don't want to hear from him. You have the executive, in this case, in North Carolina, the governor and the entire Council of State. They are all part of the executive branch, and then you have the court system, the judicial. This is just too complicated for Garry McFadden. What a freaking disaster. I mean, seriously, what an unmitigated disaster. Here's my final takeaway. I don't agree with Garry McFadden's politics, and that's okay. I don't have to agree. I'm not expecting him to change what he believes to mold himself around me, and I would hope that he doesn't feel the same way about me. I disagree with him, and guess what? That's okay. However, after watching this hearing, spending all freaking day yesterday watching this hearing and putting clips together and getting an article ready for CarolinaJournal.com, I can say honestly, I have zero respect for Garry McFadden. Not because I disagree with his policies, but because he's an arrogant jerk. He is a combative, arrogant jerk who spent the entirety of this committee hearing playing the victim, spent this entire committee hearing being a pompous a-hole to members of the North Carolina General Assembly, playing the race card, playing the victim card here, the victim card there, all for what? Because he feels like he's being, I guess, selected for no reason by lawmakers to come testify. He is consistently, and I would argue purposefully, have been a huge pain in the ass of lawmakers in Raleigh. They finally haul his ass in front of this committee, and he's the victim. And it's because he's the first black sheriff in Mecklenburg County, which he said multiple times or insinuated multiple times during the committee here. And I'll give huge credit to Representative Brendan Jones. It was obvious at the start of the hearing, if you watch it in its entirety, that he was interested in getting McFadden to answer some of the questions. And it was obvious literally from the first question that was not going to happen. And so bravo to Representative Brendan Jones for just allowing this moron to talk. Because, I mean, there are stints of time where McFadden is rambling on for like 8 or 9 minutes, saying nothing in that entire time. Just rambling on about how he's not allowed to talk about things and about how it's unfair for people to be talking to him and how it's not his fault that anything is happening. I mean, absolutely masterclass done by Representative Jones and the rest of this committee, who let McFadden just talk. Let him just run his mouth over and over and over again, making no point whatsoever. I've got one final clip for you. It just came to mind about exactly this issue, where the question, I don't even remember what the setup for this was. I mean, honestly, I don't remember what it was, but he just goes, he's talking to himself as if he's the third person and goes on this rant about how you, referring to the legislators, you couldn't get elected in my county and I couldn't get elected in your county and you just don't understand. It was just so freaking bizarre.
We were called every name before we got here.
We were called every name. I'm not sure who the we is. He's referring to himself in the third person. We. Very, very odd. Very, very odd.
We were called every name before we got here as black sheriffs. The woke sheriffs.
Yes.
Those sheriffs. Compare me with other 99 sheriffs. I'm elected by the county that I'm in. Most of you all, or some of you all, could never be elected in my county, and I could never be elected in your county because your county has a different view than my county. So let's be honest with that. I am the elephant in the room, but I'm the proud elephant in the room, and I will always be the proud elephant in the room and the state. And it is not the great state of Mecklenburg. We are just a county. That is something that has been dubbed. If we can move away from all of that rhetoric, we could be better. But will we? We still want to put us on blast, but I don't think that is what this state needs and certainly does not deserve.
So I made the point that lawmakers, including Representative Jones, just let him, at a certain point, just kind of gave up asking him questions and just let him go on and ramble. That's an example of it. That was just a small little snippet, just 60 seconds of him rambling about God knows what. You call this the woke sheriffs. Yeah, because your policies are woke as hell. I am the elephant in the room. I'm always going to be the elephant in the room. I have no freaking idea what he's talking about. Nobody had any idea. There was periods of time where it would cut to the lawmakers asking him questions, and they were just sitting there with their jaws on the ground. They had no idea how to respond to what was coming out of his mouth. He's making, like, sentences were completely incoherent, no logic being drawn to, 9 minutes of rambling and running through all of these issues and not getting to a point. I mean, if I was going to sit here and speak for 9 minutes, hopefully I do a pretty good job at setting something up and then conclude with a point. This guy was rambling for minutes on end and saying absolutely nothing. I'll go back to it. Voters in Mecklenburg County, if you're sick of this crap, it's time to start doing something about it, or I guess get out. He doesn't want it to be referred to as the state of Mecklenburg County. Okay, fine. We'll now start calling it the People's Republic of Mecklenburg. How about that? state, People's Republic. We're pretty close to that at this point. Good Lord. I've got all of the clips on social media. You can follow me over on X at Nicholas M. Craig. Had a very busy day yesterday, clipping and putting all of this stuff out. And so you'll find all of that over on my X account at Nicholas M. Craig. Whew. What a show. What a day in Raleigh. I knew it was going to be contentious. I previewed this for you yesterday morning. I didn't think it was going to go this way. I expected him to be combative. That's kind of his MO. I expected him not to take any sort of responsibility for anything he's ever done because that's also his MO. I was not expecting him to perform so poorly. For him to seemingly lack the basic understanding of the English language, not like just using words that make absolutely no sense. He kept saying, you don't understand the content of the story. He was trying to say context, I guess, but he said that for like 2 hours. Just incoherent throughout the entirety of the event. Made no points and answered absolutely no questions from lawmakers. And when the rubber met the road, pulled the race card. You're only doing this to me because I'm the first black sheriff in Mecklenburg County. Not because people are concerned that they can't go out in public. Not because people are concerned that they can no longer ride public transit because they're afraid their neck is going to get sliced open by a known convict. No, it's because of his skin color that all of this awful stuff is happening to Garry McFadden. Give me a freaking break. Thanks for spending some time with us here on this Tuesday morning. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand in your favorite podcast app. Thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and is available 24/7 in your favorite podcast app. We'll do it again tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show.